All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. At least good afternoon on the East Coast. Welcome to NWA Webinar Wednesday. My name is Tricia Palmer, and I am the chair of the NWA Professional Development Committee. This month's webinar is on diverse perspectives, hosted by the new NWA Diversity Committee. Thanks to Jennifer Hogan and Alyssa Bates. So we can go ahead and get started. Thanks a lot.
All right, thank you. Good day, everybody. My name is Jennifer Hogan, as Tricia just mentioned, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the NWA Diversity Committee, one of the newest NWA committees, actually, and it comprises of many people of different backgrounds and diverse environments as well. With that in mind, our mission is basically to promote diversity within the NWA and across the enterprise as best as possible. And so that's kind of one reason why we are doing this webinar today. Basically, we're looking to ensure that there's inclusion for all individuals regardless of sexual preference, orientation, any physical or mental disabilities, as well as race and ethnicity. So with that, welcome to our webinar, Diverse Perspectives. Just to give a little introduction, I kind of like saying some large terms every now and then to sound impressive, and that might actually lead into one of our talks later on today. But the idea that ethnography is actually the systematic study of the people and culture. And with that in mind, it's designed to explore the culture phenomenon from the researcher's observation of society and culture itself. So it's kind of the idea of looking at a culture or a difference in society as a whole and just kind of giving an idea of researching and exploring from their perspective, not necessarily from what you perceive, but more so through the eyes of that culture itself. In this presentation, we'll explore and listen to 3 different discussions about the experiences and ideals that are all a little different from the societal norms as we know it today, or as they exist today. Basically, these discussions will focus on the speaker's perspectives and of the environment that they exist within, and they'll give you their account of their story, of their life story. We implore you to listen to their statements, reflect upon their spoken words, reflect on the issues addressed, ponder on the reactions to their statements, empathize and become more aware of the respectful, diverse perspectives that exist in our world. So with that in mind, we're going to basically be sharing with you a couple of TED Talks today. We were given or granted permission from TED itself to use these specific talks within this webinar. We do need to address one specific situation with these TED Talks, and that's basically that due to TED Talks having a YouTube account or a YouTube channel already established, we cannot show or record these talks on this webinar to upload to the NWA YouTube channel due to copyright issues with YouTube itself. So with that in mind, congratulations everybody who is here live. You get to see the full unabbreviated version of this webinar. But for those who will be seeing the webinar in archive form, it will be a different format in which we will have to direct you to the links to the talks so that you can view them separately from the webinar. But the idea is to also have whatever dialogue is spoken within this webinar to be on display and archived on the YouTube channel. So we apologize for that. That was a little snag in what we discovered through creating this webinar in and of itself with the use of the TED Talks. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and introduce our first talk for the day. This TED Talk was given by Jenny Chain and Lisa Dazolis, and it focuses on the LGBT community and research of worldwide perspectives on this specific community. So I will go ahead and share my screen. So, a few things to ponder upon on this particular talk. What are your thoughts about the other countries' stance on LGBT rights? What are your thoughts or Ireland's or Argentina's stances of interest or a surprise to you? I personally found this to be actually kind of surprising, that both Argentina and Ireland, being mostly Catholic backgrounds, having more progressive laws than the United States. And I get it. There's a lot of politics that go on too here in the U.S., but it was just surprising to hear of that, because when you think of other world perspectives on this specific type of community, one tends to kind of isolate their mindset to what is going on around them. And so this talk, I think, was a very beautiful talk, a very well-written talk about the worldwide perspectives that each country has to the LGBT rights and also the community itself. Now, bringing it back to the U.S., let's think about some of the laws that have recently passed at state levels that have been more on the discriminatory side for those in the LGBT community. Does it feel like it's a step backwards to what we've overcome with last year's Supreme Court ruling on gay rights marriage? That's something to kind of think about and reflect upon. I think it's interesting, and you know, everybody each to their own in terms of their opinions. But this is something that these sorts of talks help to bring about that thought process. And then, what actions do you take to be inclusionary? Whether we're talking about a physical, cognitive, or intellectual bias, or want to include as many of those aspects and attributes into your daily life, whether it's in your work environment or at home. And then also with problem solving by a diverse group, and then not being so isolated or enclosed, making decisions in a vacuum, basically.
Did we want to discuss that? Did anybody have any comments or questions on that?
Oh, yeah, I guess we do have the live tweet that's going on, for starts, and I don't know if we've had any discussions, panels, something along those lines.
Yeah, this is Tim here. So far, no tweets have come in, so feel free to send us your comments or questions. Use the hashtag NWA WebWed, WEBWED. So if you do have any questions or comments, feel free to just ask them on Twitter and get that hashtag. That hashtag again is hashtag NWA WebWed.
All right.
Okay, thanks, Tim. All right, then we'll get to the next video. Hi, I'm Elisa Bates, and I'm another Diversity Committee member. And this next talk will be given by Stella Young, and she will give you a very unique perspective on being disabled. Okay, we may have had some audio difficulties with that video. Basically, she was saying why are disabled people, why are disabled people supposed to, not good at summary, sorry. Why are disabled people, like, why are they supposed to inspire people? Growing up for her, it was normal to be the way she was. And so she was just explaining that, and that disabled people aren't necessarily, they don't need to inspire people, and that it doesn't necessarily mean that her life is worse than anybody else's, that she's since she's disabled. So those are the main takeaways from that video. And I wanted to preface my commentary by saying that I am disabled myself, though it may not be obvious. I'm legally blind, and so I have dealt with these same issues myself. So what do Jennifer, you can share your screen now.
Oh, I thought it was. Sorry.
There you go. And so now what do we think of motivational speaking of those with disabilities? Why should, I mean, in my life, it comes to the point where when I tell people that I'm a meteorologist and I have a master's degree, they say, wow, really? How did you do that? And it's not this big achievement. It's just how I live my life. I just make adaptations to do things that I need to do. Everyone has their little handicaps that they may need to account for, and so I just do the same. And then what about objectifying those individuals with disabilities? Do I need to be, oh, there's that blind girl. Should that be the way I'm defined? I don't think so. I'm many things to many people. I'm not just that blind girl. So I don't think we should objectify people based on their disabilities or any other characteristic, honestly. And then there's the statement of, my life could be worse. I could be like this person. And I am guilty of this myself. Many times I have said, oh, man, I'm so grateful that I'm not totally blind. And though that is kind of a good thing, because then you learn to be grateful for what you do have, but at the same time, it's not fair to the person who is totally blind, because for them, that's normal. And yes, there are some people who develop disabilities later in life or because of certain situations, but then that becomes their new normal, and they learn to adapt, and they're not doing anything extraordinary, really. And so, and then finally here we have, how many times have you reflected on the ingenious ways that individuals overcome their disabilities? For example, using a wheelchair battery to charge your cell phone rather than their physical disability. For me, people walk into my cubicle and they say, wow, look at those giant monitors. That's incredible. I want one of those. And whereas why can't people just, why do people focus on the different things that some disabled people have, like a white cane or a wheelchair? We shouldn't focus on those things. We should focus on the individual, just like we would anyone else.
I would have to agree with you, Alyssa, on that.
Thanks, Jennifer. Does anybody else have any comments on that? Cue up the next video. Okay. This video is from, I guess we can, Jamila Lyscott, and she will give you, or sorry, she will speak about, well, I'll let her articulate it for you. Okay, so Jamila is articulate. And when you hear someone speak, rather than, or sorry, okay, think of the television show The Voice. You know, the judges have their backs turned to you, or to the contestants who are auditioning. They're singing, and so that lessens their bias of seeing that person's visual impression. But on the other side of that, what if those singers were speaking? What if you only heard someone speak and you didn't see them I'm sure you would get a different first impression based on their accent, their vernacular, and just the way they talk. And that's not just think about that. How much somebody's voice and the way they talk affects your judgment on that person as a person. And then, do you change your vernacular word bank from your professional life to your home life to your social life? I know I do. I have different filters, I call them. So in a professional setting, I'll say, hello, how are you? And maybe with another group of acquaintances, I'll say, hey, how's it going? And then but only with my closest friends and family, I'll say, hey y'all, what's up? So I'll have a completely different accent or a completely different way of speaking with different groups. And so imagine a world where we don't have filters and we just say the same things with each group of different people in our lives. Just imagine what that would be like. I think it would be a little refreshing, maybe.
Probably get a little bit of that whole PC talk and
yes, exactly.
More personality. Definitely, and just to kind of go along with that whole statement as well. I know I do the same thing. I'll speak one way when I'm present in front of a professional audience or at work, unless I'm with certain people who know me very well at work, will I kind of let loose a little bit and speak a little different terminology, maybe use some sentence enhancers that aren't usually used in a professional setting, but that would be about the extent of it. And I always make sure to look behind my back too before I say certain things as well. Those types of things definitely occur. And then when I'm at home, it's a whole different situation. Think about even the parents out there. I have a 16, 17-month-old, and I have a 17-year-old. So not only do I have to know my daughter, 17-year-old, her jargon, and whatever slang terms that the kids have out there today, those young whippersnappers, I have to try to decipher what my baby toddler is trying to say too, and he's just learning at this point. But I think that this TED Talk definitely brings up a lot of good points where when we see someone and when we hear how they speak, that shouldn't be necessarily reflective on many of their personality traits or aspects, because there are a lot of smart people out there that have very vast knowledge of items, things, whatnot, and they may sound like they're not all that intellectual, but they've got experience behind them that deserves the respect as well. So I've found myself in the past correcting even like my husband's English, and Jamila says it right. There's no real right way of being able to speak within a certain English law. I mean, there is to a point, but when you're at home and within your intimate circle, there doesn't necessarily need to be that much of a stagnant, staunch perspective. But anyways, as I digress. So it's definitely something to keep in mind, though, as we meet people, network with others, even within our own field, outside of our field too. I bet that when we have come across emergency managers, storm chasers, storm spotters, and people who may have just a vague interest in weather itself, and then those individuals really at least knowing terminology, and they may not use it just right. We shouldn't, judge them on that. If they try to describe what's going on in terms of the atmosphere in a thermodynamic setting, they shouldn't necessarily be judged against them for trying. They have a passion, and so that deserves a respect, and that's just kind of a field experience or field example that I could think of real fast off the top of my head there. And I'm sure we come across many of them. If there are any broadcasters in our webinar audience today, I'm pretty sure all of them are shaking their heads right now. So that's definitely a thought to ponder upon as we move forward from these talks. Let's see here.
Hey, Jennifer, this is Tim. Hey, a question came in on Twitter that basically asks why is the National Weather Association addressing these social issues? And I guess so the question I would ask you or Alyssa, why should a scientifically based organization be addressing these kind of social issues? How would you answer that?
Well, I would have to say that it's not necessarily addressing, it's bringing awareness to these social issues. For one, when we went through creating this presentation itself, we had a few other TED Talks actually that we wanted to show that we thought were incredibly interesting as well. And TED Talks themselves, when you read about their terms and use and things of that sort for webinar presentations such as this, or even in a convention or annual meeting setting, they make the statement that they want this communication to go out and to be spread. It may be slightly biased, obviously, because it's one person's opinion about how they may live their life. And that's not necessarily something that everybody is definitely going to agree with. But I think the promotion from, at least from the Diversity Committee side, is not necessarily to take a stance, yes, no, this is correct, this is not correct. It's more so of acceptance and respect. And I think that's the most important part, that not only as colleagues and professionals, we should all respect each other for the persons that we are, the characteristics that we hold. So it's not,
irrespective of your I'm echoing. That's irrespective of your job, whether you're a scientist or if you work in psychology or some other social area.
Yeah, I don't think it's us saying, you know, as a no, in no means is this stating as an association, do we agree, disagree? This is a very neutral environment to be able to come in and express other ideals just for the simple idea of exposure. Because how else, if you're isolated, how else are you going to pursue these ideas that are out there? I mean, there's an infinite number of thought processes that exist, and yes, for the terms of good and evil, there are some that are bad, but then even those that can help open a mindset just a little bit to allow for that additional respect to shine through. I think that's really our goal and our objective at this point. Are there any other comments or questions coming through Twitter?
Not yet. I'm keeping an eye on them.
That was a good one, and I was thinking about that too while we were just doing this presentation, putting it all together. I was concerned, and I even brought this up with Janice too. I made the statement like, I really want it to be as neutral as possible because I respect other people's opinions. We don't have to always agree, and that's everybody's choice. We have that right to have that differencing of opinion, but at the same sense too, I do feel that the exposure aspect could help to eliminate some friction that some people may have when it comes to certain subjects.
I think for, and I'm not going to speak for the National Weather Association, but we are a science-based organization, and I think most people are just very used to, let's talk about vorticity, let's talk about thunderstorms, you know, isotropic upglide. And I think you guys are in an area that's taking people a little out of their comfort zone. You know, we're all together. We like to all talk sciencey and talk about AWIPs and, you know, what the latest Doppler radars are doing, and, you know, the latest things like that. It's a little more uncomfortable to have some of these other social discussions. But I think it's important because we are the weather enterprise, and we are all not one vanilla cookie cutter kind of person. So I think this is a very good discussion to have.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, Tim. Definitely.
I think Tim
Oh, go ahead, Tricia.
I was going to say, I think Tim made a great point there, just saying that we're not all cookie cutter vanilla, but diversity is so many different things. I mean, it can come down to where we went to school, where we went to undergrad, because the things like that, everything that has shaped our lives is what made us who we are. And my experiences are different from your experiences, Jennifer, different from Tim's experiences, or Jonathan's experiences, or Lisa's experiences. And it's not just, gender or sexual orientation or whatever. It's not the things that we might normally think of as diversity topics, but it's everything. I grew up in Arkansas, and that shaped some of my youth. I had parents who had different personalities than I have. So personality, I think, is huge. I mean, are you a time management type person, or are you a procrastinating type person? Are you an introvert or an extrovert? All those little things can go into diversity, and I think that's being aware, whether or not, again, the association, again, not speaking for the association, but as long as we're all aware of each other's differences, not giving anybody an excuse to treat other people differently, but just being aware, I think that would really help with communication in general.
Absolutely, and I would have to say that if Jennifer Henderson was on right now, she'd probably be making those very statements that it takes this awareness, even from a scientific community, to be able to outreach to the peoples in general. And so you've got to have that understanding. Again, it's a respect thing too. And again, it doesn't have to be your yes, no, right, wrong, whatever opinion. You hold that as part of you yourself, but you also have to have that understanding, because in the midst of severe weather, whatever it may be, you have to be able to communicate. And if you can't have if you don't have some sort of idea of how to communicate with all the people out there, which is a very diverse, genre of people, list them, we're in the melting pot of the world here, then you're going to miss your goal. You're going to miss out on being able to forewarn as best as possible. And then, if you're with the National Weather Service, you're kind of missing out on your mission as well. So I guess the one thing, when it comes to social issues, kind of have to, and you're right, Tim, we are taking people out of their comfort zone. But I think that's kind of where you got to go just a little bit to kind of get that dialogue going and the thought processes started, just to hatch. That's all we're attempting to do, is really plant that seed and kind of get that awareness out there.
Hey, I think Jonathan's having some audio issues. He had a question that says that the theme for this year's annual meeting is better science, better communication, better results. How do you see that diverse perspectives can help us accomplish that?
Well, I'd have to say that definitely working with a couple of the different committees to help basically pull through some of those diverse thoughts to learn how to communicate better, even within each other, within the National Weather Association too. That can help kind of circulate outwards into everybody's jobs and their field of expertise as well. Like I said before, the diverse thinking, or at least mindset, should help enhance the communication. So when you've got that better science coming in, you got to learn how to, better communicate that better science out too. So, and think about the technology, not only within our field, but just in the realm of communication itself. I mean, I admitted I don't have a Twitter account, and I know nothing about tweeting, minus hashtag. I can hashtag, but I don't have an account, so it doesn't put anything that I'm aware of. I mean, it goes somewhere, but where, I don't know. So those are sorts of things that I'm clueless on. So maybe I need to kind of get a little educated on. But I can kind of, introduce myself to that whole new technology that's not new, it's really old. And that can help enhance my communication ability. So that's kind of where I see us as a group kind of moving forward as well.
Sure. Alyssa, do you have any comments on that?
Just the same things that Jennifer was saying. I keep thinking that, I mean, we keep integrating more social scientists into our field, and I think that's a really great thing because, as you said, we're scientists. We don't necessarily know how to talk to non-scientists and communicate our messages properly. But I think that we should also start being more aware of those things ourselves and not solely relying on those social scientists. We can also have the capacity to realize, okay, even though this person may look different or act differently or speak differently, that doesn't mean that I can't communicate with them in an effective manner.
Right, and got a question off of Twitter that says, and I'll use an example. The question is, how does as our roles as forecasters especially in the warning process, how does diversity play a way of improving that communication? I know that back in I seem to remember back in 2011 there were certain issues, say in like Alabama and Birmingham when they had the tornado outbreak, on reaching or getting those warnings to the Spanish-speaking community there. You know, I work for the Weather Service in El Paso, and that's one of the things that we also struggle with is how do we reach a Spanish-speaking community. You know, we're an English language-based country. People expect us to be speaking in English, but we have a large segment in Spanish, and so how can we, working with and talking about diversity issues, how can that help us improve that communication, especially when it comes to warning, things like that?
I think you brought up a great example, having the ability of introducing bilingual, and even what Jamila said, trilingual, even though hers is more English-based, still having that bilingual aspect within any WFO, especially, I think, for the given area. You're in El Paso, so it makes sense that you would have some Spanish-speaking and fluently Spanish-speaking individuals in your office. That makes that, I mean, it's almost logical. It makes complete sense that you would have that. Maybe even in Florida, the same aspect could occur. Texas, Arizona, really almost anywhere. But then also when you think about it, I know here in Ohio, we have a lot of Somalian immigrants in at least Columbus. And that's something that I've noticed over the course of the last probably 5 to 10 years, that not only do we have a lot of Spanish-speaking advertisements and things of that sort out and about, but you also notice that there's a lot of dialects for the Somali immigrants as well. And that I thought was truly interesting because I would have never in a million years thought about that sort of stuff needing to be something prevalent. And I couldn't tell you how large that population is, but it's a very large minority population as well as the Hispanic groups here. But those items, I even see churches advertising for different masses or services that are in several different languages, not just English and Spanish anymore, but Haitian and Somali and Farsi and all sorts of stuff. Like you see it advertised. It's just very interesting that how that melting pot is starting to really become more forthcoming. And so I think people are going to have to kind of adapt to that and know what their areas individually need to focus on. So each WFO would have something just a little different. And maybe that's something that hiring managers need to take into consideration when they are putting out requisites and looking to hire.
Yeah, I know there are at least a couple WFOs that are putting out bilingual products, and maybe eventually we could start looking into maybe there's some sort of technology that would translate into various other languages so that we could get our products to several racial, or not, what's it called, ethnic backgrounds.
No, that's true. Because again, the technology continues to expand, so why would that not be an option? Of course, I understand that money would be a
yeah.
But that's something to explore. Definitely.
Well, I see it. We've been talking for about an hour now. Maybe if you guys could kind of give a summary or a kind of wrap things up and then we can kind of tie a bow on this one.
That works. Yeah, so at least we hope that through these 3, even though they're just 3, TED Talks, hopefully they've at least spawned some or provoked some sort of thought in each of the participants to basically kind of reflect upon what they said. There were a lot of things that were brought up from the LGBT community in the sense of how does the world community view that specific community, and did you realize that certain countries are a little bit more against or for rights for the LGBT community? So that's one aspect. And then with the disabilities, who I never in a million years would have ever really thought about objectifying those with disabilities and pinning them to be sources of inspiration, which Stella said it perfectly. I am not your source of inspiration. And she hit that nail right on the head. She's not. There are many other items that can be sources of inspiration, but a disability should not necessarily be that. And I think that was definitely eye-opening. And then Jamila as well, with the whole being articulate, the aspect of being trilingual, the idea that we do change up how we speak and talk in front of other people, individuals, and then not to be judged against that. That's something that's definitely important, and then I think that everybody can really take away from that. If they didn't take away from the other 2, they can definitely take away from that, because I think that we all, whoever speaks, has, and maybe even in the deaf community, there's the same thing that occurs, that you would have to change it up just slightly. And if you did, does that mean that you're being judged? And if that is the case, then definitely reflect upon yourself and make sure that you are not projecting that out when that occurs. So hopefully this webinar just allows for that reflection on self and how we can better ourselves in terms of being able to respect others with the differences and the diverse environment that we live in.
Right. Alyssa, do you have anything to kind of finish up with?
Nope, I think Jennifer did a great job of that.
Well, very good. Miss Tricia, I got you muted. Can you unmute yourself? Do you have anything to kind of finish up with?
No, I just appreciate the new Diversity Committee for giving this presentation. I would hope everybody will join us next month, Wednesday, June 1st. Rich Kowalski from the Specialized Ops Committee will be giving a presentation on how to give an effective poster presentation. So that should be of at least some interest, hopefully a lot of interest, especially for people for the upcoming annual meeting. So please join us for that. And thank you very much, Jennifer and Alyssa, and thank you, Tim and Jonathan, for your support and help too.
Yes, thank you, everybody, for your support.
Very good. Well, everyone have a good day.